When we started Flat World, the big idea was to eliminate all of the barriers between publication of world-class content and use of that content. I really want to emphasize world-class because in higher ed, it's an important issue to get in the classroom. And then use applies to both students and professors. I often get asked, how did the $200 textbook come about? And certainly there's lots of problems in the channel as it relates to print. And so some of it is very justified, perhaps justified. But some of it can be pointed also at the publisher. So if you take a quick history lesson, you kind of look at the evolution of the industry over the last 20 years. You see this colossal build out of the go-to-market model. The sales teams on campus have grown exponentially in the last 15 or 20 years. And now today in the big oligopolis, McGraw-Hill, Pearson, and Cengage, they number in the several hundreds and are basically the way new ideas get to market. After all the consolidation in the 90s, the major competitors started to seem very similar. So now you got into an arms race to gather faculty attention. And you really provided the faculty with tons of new ancillaries to help them teach the course. Those are things like CD-ROMs, websites, whatever it might be, all kind of driving up the cost of production. And of course, this industry faces a moral hazard problem in the sense that the faculty member is the one who prescribes the product, and of course, the only person who pays in most cases is the student. So now what's the natural student response? Here's Bert, an enterprising student, faced with the dilemma of $200 textbooks. These are actual prices off the publisher's websites for the market-leading books in big courses. And actually, I was at the bookstore earlier today, and indeed, several $200 plus textbooks over there. And what does Bert do when faced with that problem? He searches frantically for substitutes. And he's been very effective in the last 10 years because of the internet, which really brought transparency to all the substitutes. So the used book market, which used to be a very nascent, small industry, is now incredibly efficient, and every used book finds a home. You've got a global reimportation problem, where the exact same content intended for the Singapore market, amazingly, somebody senses an arbitrage opportunity, pulls that content back into the States and sells it to the students. You've got the emergence of the rental companies. Actually, the rental business has been around forever in the space, but now Chegg and BookRenner and others have really commercialized it. And then you've got peer-to-peer, most of it legitimate. I just want to give my book to my friend or sell it to him when I'm done. Some of it not so legitimate, meaning Google any market-leading book and put free PDF after it, and you'll find lots of PDFs out on the web. And generally, how have the publishers responded? Well, somewhat defensively. So they've raised prices very aggressively, over 10% a year, at least for the last 5 years. They've bundled to confuse the consumer, to try to make the consumer feel like they have to buy the new book or the new unique ISBN at the bookstore. And they've increased the revision pace. It used to be 4 or 5 years for market-leading books. Now it's 12, 18, 24 months. And quite honestly, that leaves everybody in the space underserved. Now you have this emergence of free and open content, or in our case, textbooks. And what is open? So David Wiley, who happens to be our Chief Openness Officer and one of the leading voices in the field of open education resources, defines it this way. So the first R is reuse, which basically just means reuse the content that was provided to you in its verbatim sense. The second is to revise. So you have the right, through the license granted to you, to go ahead and revise the work in any way you might like. The next is to remix. So this is combining open education resources, maybe 2 textbooks from the Flat World site, to create a perfect book for yourself. And finally, the last piece, which is exciting to me, is the redistribution. So now you come to Flat World or any other OER provider, you make the original product better, and you share it back into the communities for others to benefit from. Several people are trying to attack this space. You have the rogue individual, who I have a lot of respect for. Here's an example of a professor up in Puget Sound who just put his linear algebra book on the web. Got frustrated, wrote a book over the summer and said, I'm just going to put it up there for others to use. Very laudable, not all that scalable, but a good effort nonetheless. You just heard from Sydney. who represents the best repository in the world of open education content, in my opinion. Over 20,000 modules, tons of content available through Connections. Merlot is actually a linking site in the California system that actually aggregates also. But I think the important thing that we bring to the market is a discipline around publishing. So because of that moral hazard problem, and because of the fact that the publishers are very good at what they do, the stakes to get into the market are pretty high. So when we set out to start the company, we knew quality content had to be part of our offering. So we copied the publisher model here. We're very much like what Eric and I, Eric's my other co-founder, what Eric and I did in our lives at McGraw-Hill and at Pearson. We go out and get a top author, so we vet all of our authors. We help them write a perfect book, or we help them write a very good book, I should say. No book is perfect. We professionally develop peer review. We surround it with ancillaries that we think are important for faculty to adopt our products. The second thing we do that is very different is we now legally transfer control of that content to the individual faculty member or the institution, but usually a faculty member. That means legally we grant them, through the license we attach to our content, which is a Creative Commons license, the legal right to go ahead and modify the work, as long as they follow our license, which is simply attribute the original author and Flatworld, share it back into the catalog using the same license, and don't make money from it. Don't take it to McGraw-Hill and publish it. So our books are openly licensed using that Creative Commons license, and then I've built the platform underneath it all that allows you as an instructor or you as an institution to easily play with this content and make it your own. So it's no longer one size fits all as a textbook, and it never should be, right? Every course is unique. Professors have always customized their content, oftentimes through a syllabus, but now we're giving them control to go ahead and customize to the perfect book they want to build. And this is Scott Hunt, one of our customers at Columbus State Community College, who's been teaching economics for about 25 years. And he now has a derivative of our book, which is by Libby Rittenberg and Tim Tregarthen, and it's now modified by Scott Hunt. And what he says is, in all my years of teaching economics, I've never had a perfect book. Now I do, because it's mine, and it's affordable. Or you have Ross Gattell at the University of New Hampshire. So Ross is an expert on sustainability and public policy. He teaches 800 students a semester, Introduction to Business. But most Introduction to Business books do not cover that material in the depth that he wants. So Ross comes into our platform and writes Chapter 3 on business, government, and public policy, and Chapter 4 on sustainability and business. Those are his chapters. They appear just like ours. He followed our template. He authored right inside our platform. And now those chapters appear for his students in all of the formats. And here's what control means across our top customers. So 6 of our top 10 customers, the faculty member has taken control of the content and made it better for their local implementation. Now, the other thing that's really powerful in the hands of the learner is as soon as Scott Hunt or Ross Gattell is done creating the perfect book, creating his or her derivative, they output it in 5 formats. 6 if they haven't added in new content. So they output it in the web version, which is free to all learners. That's the initial entry point for every learner. We output it in a soft cover or in a low-res PDF for print it yourself for the students. We output it in a high-res PDF for soft cover printing through our printing partner, R.R. Donnelley. We output it in EPUB and Mobi for various handhelds a student may or may not have, and we output it in audio, again, if they haven't added in their own content. And in addition, we output it in Daisy Reader and Braille versions and share those with Bookshare, our partner for all the accessibility needs for students. And then we simply just let the student decide how they want to consume it. So you might ask, does it really matter that we have $200 textbooks? Is it a big deal? I see students with nice shoes on and drinking lots of Starbucks. And I think what's important to understand is what is the average demographic of the student in the US today. So the reality is 50% of students spend less than $3,000 a year on tuition. 50%. So it's a lot of students spending a seemingly small amounts of money. Now, this is changing, of course, with the economy somewhat. Tuition is all over the place now. 60% less than $5,000. And maybe our mental map is this student who goes to Boston College or Duke or wherever, but it's only 3% of students. And arguably they can afford the books perhaps. But if you're only spending $5,000 a year on tuition and you're taking 8 courses at $150, that's a pretty large percentage of your education. So my argument to you today is it's not about immersion. It's not about device. That stuff's all exciting and we support it all and it's good stuff and it's going to enhance learning. But the immediate problem today is one of access. It's unfair that students don't have access to high quality content. In our model, every student enters for free. There's no more saying I can't afford. There's no more waiting for your book from half.com, which is the old edition, the only one you can afford. You're in immediately as soon as your professor sets up the course. You have lots of options to consume, and everybody says to me, Jeff, if you let them in for free, nobody will pay, and that's a crock. 50% of students do stay free, 50% consume a format, and we're just young. This will probably get better. So I'll close with 2 quick case studies. Cerritos College is a big urban community college outside LA, 28,000 students, very traditional urban community college. About half of their business school students take their courses fully online, and they only have to come to campus once a semester, typically for the final. So as students would be, lots of them don't come very often, and so they don't get access to their book from the bookstore, or they don't get it quick enough. So they started with Flatworld and said, why don't we adopt a book from Flatworld, and at least everybody will have equal access initially. And so Linda Lacey, who's the president of Cerritos College, wrote this article in the Community College Weekly last fall. And what she basically said is, access and affordability for us has been solved. Our retention rates are up over 90% in the courses using Flatworld books. Our GPAs have improved, and as for an educator, it doesn't get any better than that. And finally, Virginia State. So Virginia State has a different model. 53% of their undergraduate business students would not buy the book simply due to cost. So the dean came in and said, I've got to solve this, and couldn't find a scalable solution. Went to alumni to get textbook relief funds, all of this short-term fixes, and finally she heard about us. She came to us and purchased from us $20 seat licenses, actually $19.95, for access to all of the digital versions of the book, audio, PDF, web, EPUB, Mobi, plus all of the study aids for every student in a course. $19.95, they're all in. Here's their experience, or it could be their experience, but they have access to everything digitally. They can, of course, jump out and buy print if they want to do that also. And she's starting to test retention, which she saw go up in the fall semester. That was the first semester they used our product. But just as importantly, 800 students last fall saved $67,000 in textbook costs. And that's real impact at Virginia State. Thank you.